Hello everyone, and welcome to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else that I deem necessary to get my mental health in the right spot. So, it is no secret now that the godfather of Commander has passed away. Sheldon Menery has been a member of the Magic community for so many years, and I was going to talk about that last week, and I tried to record something 3 separate times, and I just needed to take a step away. And so I just kind of threw myself into Civilization 6 and took, the weekend off. And I just needed to do nothing, right? And talking about it now, it still hurts to talk about this. We knew it was coming, right? We knew he has been fighting with cancer for 6 years at this point. But man, it still hurts. It still feels wrong that he's not here anymore. I only met the man a few times. And I never sat down and had a long conversation with him or anything, but the few times I did meet him, he always gave off this feeling of belonging, right? And I don't have a lot of places that I feel like I belong. And you can take that however you feel. Magic, and more importantly, Commander, has been that place for me over the years. I still suffer with a lot of anxiety, but I was able to get to a point where I can stand being surrounded by people to a point because of this game. My first travel out to California was for a Grand Prix, which I don't even know if they were still called Grand Prix at that point. I guess all I'm trying to say is, Sheldon, I want to thank you for building a place where I feel like I belong. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I promise to make this format a welcoming area for everybody that walks into it. And you will be, and are already, sorely missed. We are happy that you are no longer struggling. But it still sucks to say goodbye. So this is my goodbye to someone who I saw have the most integrity of anybody I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And now I'm going to go take a quick break and pull myself back together. I'll be right back. Hey, I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff. Believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast and me, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And we're back. Now, I did have to take a few minutes to get myself back under control. But to bring myself back to normal, let's talk about a deck that I built. So, me and my cousin went to pre-release, and while I was there, I picked up a bundle. One of the legendary creatures I pulled in that bundle was Rowan, Scion of War, which is 1 a black and a red for a 4/2 human wizard. It has Manache, and you can tap it, and spells you cast this turn that are black and or red cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you lost this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So, I wasn't necessarily planning on building anything from this set, but this one looked kind of cool, so I was like, whatever, I'll see what I have I can throw together for it. So this is what I threw together for it. The deck is, at its core, a red-black aggro deck. But it does have some emphasis on using life as a resource. So let's talk about that stuff first. So another thing we want to make sure we're doing with this deck is drawing cards. So first up we have the Stormfist Crusader, which is black-red for a 2/2 human knight. It also has Manache, and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card and loses 1 life. So, I know some people don't necessarily like this card, but again, it's doing what we want to do in this deck, and honestly, do I care that everyone's getting a card? Not particularly. Next up, we have Ye Olde Phyrexian Arena. 1 black for an enchantment. Beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card, you lose a life. Not much to say there. It's Phyrexian Arena. Everybody knows what it is. Next up, we have Underworld Connections, which is 1 black for an enchantment aura, and it enchants a land. The enchanted land has tap, pay a life, draw a card. Next up, we have Street Wraith, which is 3 black for a 3/4 Wraith with Swamp Walk, but more importantly, it has cycling, pay 2 life. So that means you pay 2 life and you can discard it to draw a card. So it still counts in the pay life to draw cards. Next up, we have Greed, which is 3 and a black for an enchantment. It has pay a black, pay 2 life, draw a card. And then we have the Greed on Legs, which is Erebos, God of the Dead, which is 3 and a black for a 5/7 god with Indestructible. If your devotion to black isn't 5 or greater, it's not a creature. And you can pay 1 and a black and pay 2 life to draw a card. Now, after that, we get into more of our one-shot pay life, draw cards. The most famous of those being Night's Whisper, which is 1 and a black for a sorcerer. You draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. But we follow that with Blood Pact, which is 2 and a black for an instant. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Feed the Infection, which is 3 and a black for a sorcery. You draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. It also has Corrupted, which is if each opponent that has 3 or more poison counters loses 3 life. This deck does not do anything with poison counters. It's just there as a copy of Ambition's Cost, basically, which is, well, again, 3 and a black for a sorcerer. You draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. Crushing Disappointment is 3 and a black for an instant that says each player loses 2 life and you draw 2 cards. And then Demon's Due is 3 and a black for an instant that has you scry 2, then draw 2, then lose 2. So there's a lot of you might pay 4 mana to, draw 3, lose 3, but then you can tap Rowan and potentially get a discount of 6 if you cast 2 spells. So that's kind of how I was building this deck, and then I just kind of filled it with beaters. Things like Noxious and Combustible Gearhulk. Noxious is 4 black, and Combustible is 4 red. They are both constructs. Noxious Gearhulk is a 5/4, and Combustible Gearhulk is a 6/6. Noxious Gearhulk also has Manache, And when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy another target creature. If a creature is destroyed this way, you gain life equal to its toughness. So, I did put a few things in here that are going to gain me some life because we are looking to spend a lot of life. So we needed ways to combat that. Now, the combustible has first strike, and when it enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then Combustible Gearhulk does damage to that player equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards. So this can be a double-edged sword. You never know. They could hit the lower mana stuff. They could hit the higher mana stuff. I haven't done the math yet, but I want to say the average on this deck is going to sit somewhere around the 3 to 4 mana mark for average mana costs. And you'll see why more as we go through these last few creatures. First up, we have Junji, the Midnight Sky. 3 black for a 5/5 Dragon Spirit with Flying and Menace. When he dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Or put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose 2 life. Ancient Brass Dragon is 5 black for a 7/6 Elder Dragon. It has Flying, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you roll a d20. When you do, you put any number of target creature cards with total mana value X or less from graveyards onto the battlefield under your control, where X is the result. I just realized that says from graveyards and not from your graveyard. That card is better than I thought. And to keep to this mini theme for half a minute, we also have Hellkite Charger. 4 red for a 5/5 dragon with Flying and Haste. When it attacks, you may pay 5 red. If you do, untap all attacking creatures. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase, which is just gonna help end games. Next up, we have Karazakar, the Eye Tyrant. 3 black-red for a 5/5 Beholder. Whenever you attack a player, tap target creature that player controls and goad it. And whenever an opponent attacks another one of your opponents, you and the attacking player each draw a card and lose a life. Now, this won't help with Rowan's ability because her ability has to be activated at sorcery speed, but card draw. Not going to say no to that. And then let's round this out with 2 more creatures. We have Inferno Titan, the All Reliable. 4 red for a 6/6 giant. It has 4 red. It gets +1/+0 to end a turn, otherwise known as fire breathing. And whenever Inferno Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. So, funny story. You can target yourself. So, if you really want to, you can attack your opponent with Inferno Titan, dome yourself for 3, go to your second main, tap Rowan, and reduce your costs by 3. I know, it's stupid. And finally, we have Murag, Fury of Akum. 4 red for a 6/6 Minotaur Warrior. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it has attacked this turn, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. Now, if you are going to play with this card, please be mindful. Do not play your land until your second main phase. Otherwise, you screw yourself out of an additional combat because you untap your creatures at the beginning of the additional combat that you would take. So, well, I mean, unless your creatures have vigilance, they would then be tapped for your regular combat step. So don't make that mistake. And then I guess it wouldn't be a large reducey cost deck without at least a couple X spells. So based on what I had laying around, I have a Black Sun's Twilight in here, which is X and a black for an instant. Up to one target creature gets -X/-X till end of turn if X is 5 or more. Return a creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And the card that I always still feel bad adding, but occasionally it just works with a deck too well to not add it, and that's Torment of Hellfire. X black for a sorcerer. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. So yeah, that's Rowan in a nutshell. I don't really have a whole lot more. I'm recording this several days ahead of time because the Commander Sealed charity tournament is, well, the weekend that this episode is going to go up. So I'm recording it early so I can have it ready to premiere on my normal day, which is Sunday. And yeah, that's kind of all I got. I'm still enjoying Baldur's Gate. I finally finished my first playthrough. And whew, what an ending. Now, that said, I will see you next time. And next time we will likely be talking about the Commander Sealed. But until then, bye-bye. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.